You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast.
Hi, it's Jo, and today we get to hear a conversation with Michelle and a woman from our community. And this woman is absolutely amazing. She's part of our Love Over Addiction program and has been in our community for a couple of years now. She's married to a good man who suffers from addiction and is also a mother of 5. Her story is absolutely inspiring, and it's clear that she's done a lot of work on her own recovery and healing. And we always like to remind everyone that we are a judgment-free community, which means that every woman is welcome here, regardless of her religious beliefs, her background, where she's from, her values, or her situation. So make this a safe space for our Love Over Addiction sister to share her personal story with you today. Enjoy.
The best way to start is to ask about how you met your husband, because you are currently married, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So how you met him, and when did you start to notice that he had a problem?
Okay. Well, I guess I kind of met my husband when I was maybe like 7 or 8. I was friends with his sister growing up. We were on the same soccer team. So I've known their family almost my whole life. And I didn't really know him well at all. I did sports and things with his sister, but I didn't really do anything. She had 3 brothers with any of the brothers. And then it wasn't until I was in college I was just out of college, like in my 20s, where I was at his sister's house for a get together, and then he asked me for my phone number. And to be honest, I knew there was a drinking problem back in high school. But however, at the time, I don't know if I registered, because I drank a lot in high school and in college myself, and pretty much all my friends did. So I guess I kind of thought it was like normal at that time.
Okay, so you were a big drinker, and so was he, and so you guys would drink together, I'm assuming?
No, I didn't really drink with him, but we were in the same school, and he was 2 years older than me, and sometimes I would wind up going to the same party or something, but I never really was with him, and we didn't date or anything during college. When we started to officially date, at that time for me, I had become like a born again Christian, and I actually was trying to get away from some of the things that I didn't think I should be doing anymore, like drinking, and I was trying to change my life and trying to be led by God. And I remember being alarmed then at that time when we were dating, that like if we went out on a date, he would drink a lot, I thought, for a date. Or there were times when we would go out on a date and then I drove him back to his house. So those were like the first warning flags for me. But at that time, I didn't really heed any, I was not used to at all heeding anything that seemed like a red flag. I just was so used to burying my feelings or intuitions that I just kind of hoped it away or something.
Why do you say that? Why do you say you buried your you're used to burying your feelings? Had you done that in your childhood?
Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up, I had a lot of opportunities growing up. I don't like to beat up on my parents, but I did not have feelings or emotions or just like even things I really wanted to do validated. And I learned to people please from a very young age. So I didn't really trust myself as far as making decisions. So when I saw like, oh my gosh, it's a lot of drinking, I didn't, say anything, or I didn't say, well, I just didn't make a boundary. I just kind of shoved down what I thought.
Got it. So you like kind of justified his behavior by doubting yourself, and you kind of ignored the red flags that were going on. Is that accurate?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say. What about today?
No. I was just saying, is that accurate to say? Is it to say that there was some part of you that knew that's unusual, but I'm not going to say anything about that because I don't really believe that might be more about my issue, not his. Is that
I would say, so. I think, you know what, now that I think about it, I might have said something to him and maybe my thought was I could change what was happening. But I definitely did not validate myself or my feelings or think about what was going to be the best way forward for my life. I didn't do that.
Right. Okay. So did you get to a point where you actually talked to him about his drinking, or at what point in your relationship, because you're now in the program, do you now understand that this is a problem? At what point did you realize, oh, this really genuinely is a problem with drinking? And does he have any other issues? Is there addiction to drugs, or is there addiction to pornography, or is it just about the drinking for him?
Well, I would say I think I would go in and out of denial about the drinking because his behaviors are like, or the things that I would say he has multiple things that he uses for comfort, or I hate to call it addiction because he's not, but they would rotate. So maybe it would be extreme exercise or extreme like gaming or even being like extremely codependent and helping people to like his detriment. And then there would be periods of, lots of drinking, and early on in our relationship I know there was pornography. So things would like rotate. It would be like seasonal or something. So I would maybe sometimes forget about the drinking and think, oh, I guess he doesn't have a drinking problem. But then there would be a new focus, like, well, he definitely has, there's this problem. Like there always seemed to be something that was a problem, something that came first, something that was like addictive or overboard in nature. And
okay,
I guess a few years ago, I think I just came to that realization, like there is addiction here, and I learned more about drinking and alcoholism, and that it doesn't have to be always continual every day. Like there's a lot of people with drinking problems that are binge drinkers, and they do go in these like cycles or bouts. So I feel like I kind of lost a lot of my denial about it. And that was probably before I found your program, and then I started searching for answers, and then I did find your program.
That's good. That's great that you were searching. And I think that's so true, because I think a lot of people feel that alcoholism or addiction or, extreme behavior needs to be on a daily basis. And that realization, you're right, that no, it can happen. You can be dealing with an alcoholic who binge drinks once every 3 months. but he still
Mhm.
has a drinking problem. You know, even if it
Mhm.
doesn't affect their job. Some guys that are alcoholics are wonderful parents. I mean, they're great,
Mhm.
engaged guys who run their own businesses and then after hours, drink in the evenings, in excess where they pass out.
Mhm.
So I think that's super important, and I love that you mentioned that because addiction is different for every person. But if it's affecting your
Yeah.
life, if you're drinking to excess, that's where you have a problem. Was his drinking? How was his drinking affecting you and your family?
Okay. Well, that is multifaceted. um, Initially, I guess it was affecting me because I was so obsessed with, well, all of his behaviors. So that, I really lost myself, big time. And it really affected my health. I was just stressed all the time. I just so focused on what he was doing. And I guess now, as I get more and more into recovery things, those effects are still there. They call it a family disease. Of everything that I would say, I mean, you're married, so everything the other person does has an effect on the spouse and the children. But I don't feel like it controls my life anymore. I don't feel like, I don't want to say it's not a problem, but it doesn't feel like that same kind of problem, like over this huge heavy weight. But there are still issues there that I know are related to it, and that's a lack of connection at times, or maybe overspending, lack of communication, where I guess in a healthy marriage you're like constantly growing and improving together. I feel like we have times of growth and times of we're working things out really well, but then we have these like flop times, and in those times now I just kind of double down on what I'm doing, my program, and working on all of the things that I had let go in my life that were fun and that I enjoyed, and just bringing them back and work. I like turn to friends and other people. So in a way, I feel like my life is so much better because of this, because I don't think I never really had these skills growing up. Like I feel like I have a more full life now than I ever did in my whole life, if that makes sense.
That makes such sense. I love that you're saying this, and I think this is such an important part of your story is because I say this all the time, I think addiction was the greatest gift that ever happened to me, even though for me it resulted in divorce and it resulted in, a lot of other things. I don't think I would be half the woman that I am now if I hadn't gone through that, because you're right, it does force you to really take self-inventory and go, okay, I have two choices. I can either choose to continue to be obsessed with this man and this disease and shove down every single, dream and desire and piece of self-worth that I have, or I can fight. I can rise. I can choose to heal. I can choose me. And sometimes I think addiction comes into our lives because it forces us to make that choice, whereas if it didn't, we wouldn't. We'd just settle for the comfortable, less is best life, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
I love that
definitely.
you're talking about. Do you feel that way?
Well, I definitely do. I'm surprised at how much growth that I needed, and I know that I still do need. So many times I I would say in the last year or so, there was a period of time where I was just, all I was angry. So I didn't really have any gratitude, but now I have like a lot of gratitude, like, oh my gosh, like there are things that are coming out of me that I didn't even know were like, they were just so buried. I didn't know they were there. And so I am grateful for these challenges. They feel really hard, but every time I go through something and grow, I just like feel so good about myself that I like grew past, a fear or a roadblock. And I feel like God is like bringing out of me the gifts that I have and making them available for others. And I definitely, where I came from and how I was when we were first married, I was a mess. I don't even know how anyone could have lived with me. I was maybe not drinking, but really, really crazy.
How are you crazy? Like, what kind of bad behaviors or baggage did you bring into this relationship that you feel has healed now? That you feel like you looking back, you're like, oh, I remember I used to handle this situation this way with anger or yelling or screaming, and now I find that when I get triggered or when I'm in that situation, I handle it so much differently. What are some of those situations, and how do you contrast the reactions to them?
Well, I guess I would say that I came to the relationship like kind of like a broken child myself. I had many relationships before my husband and I got married. So I brought all of that to the table, and none of it was healed for me. And that really put up a lot of walls for intimacy and being close to another person. So that was one area. I had no concept of taking care of myself in any way with finances. I kind of went from like my parents' house to college where I had loans, and then to my husband's house, and I was really just like taken care of. So I was very selfish, I feel, early on, and demanding, wanting things my own way. I would say I was not very resourceful. I didn't really know how to do anything about like running a house or being a mother. I don't know, it was more like just like entitlement. I just thought everything should be the way I wanted it, when I wanted it. And that was like 11 years ago. So over the last 11 years with having kids, and my husband actually is very good with making boundaries with me. Like him making boundaries with me, I grew a lot. I had to find answers, because I think early on when I would whine or complain or cry or try to get my own way, he gave in to me. But after a few years of that, he kind of resisted. Like, I'm not, I remember him saying to me, I feel like if I just keep giving you what you want, like it's never enough. You just want more. And where I would say for him, right now in our relationship, he's turning to things like maybe drinking or games to satisfy that emptiness. I was turning to him every time when I felt empty. Like I didn't know, like, oh, I could go take a walk, or oh, I'm going to paint, or I'm going to do something, or I'll have a friend for lunch. Like I never did any of that. It was just like I felt empty. He needed to satisfy that emptiness. So I think it wasn't like I didn't feel like I was bringing a full partner. Like I was not a full partner to the relationship. So I'm sure I was very draining and very hard to deal with for years.
I cannot tell you how impressed I am. Like, I am honestly just in awe. You are taking so much responsibility for your side, which I think is so hard to do, because a lot of women, me included, for years, blamed everything on the alcohol and addiction. And I love that I think our true growth comes from when we stop and detach kind of are willing to own up and take a look and go, gosh, I came into this with stuff that was not healthy. And it's interesting because when I got divorced, I started dating again, and I married the man that I was dated, and I thought that by leaving the alcoholic, everything would be better. But what I realized when I started dating the guy is that, no, I still have a lot more work to do on me. It's not just all about the alcohol. It's so much more about, I still have codependent tendencies, or I'm still looking for somebody's approval instead of God's approval or my own approval of myself. I'm still placing so much stock in what other people think of me, or I'm still trying to please everybody, and everybody's opinion still matters to me way too much than it needs to, including strangers, which is ridiculous. So I love that you are at the point where you can remain married and still separate yourself enough to see your behaviors. That's huge.
Well, thanks. I feel very validated in you saying that, because sometimes, I doubt myself in that decision. So that feels good. But I think it comes from one thing, or the first thing being that I did have numerous relationships before I was married, and one was a 4-year relationship. And it's funny because some things my husband says to me, it echoes something that my old boyfriend would say. So I'm like, okay. I obviously kept some of these same behaviors. So let me look at that. And then, like I said, although we both have issues, but he has been able to put boundaries on me in areas that, when I've hit that boundary, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here that is hurting him? What am I doing wrong? So
what's some of the boundaries that he places on you? Give me what's an example where you're oh yeah.
Well, let me think. I guess I used to start fights with him a lot, and I would be upset about something, and he would be, relaxing or doing something he wanted to do on the weekend, and that irritated me. And I think it was because I couldn't relax, and I didn't know what to do to relax. So I would start a fight, and he engaged in those fights with me for a really long time. But then I remember this one time that he said to me, if you come to me and you do this again, I'm walking away. I'm not going to do this ever again with you. And it kind of just stuck in my head. And I don't think I was successful the first time that I tried to not do that. But I became aware of it then, and I really wanted to stop doing that. I didn't want to go to him and start a fight, because I felt uneasy or not at rest. And maybe he was doing something that I didn't like, or that maybe wasn't the best choice, but I didn't need to go and just start a full-out fight over it. So that was one area. I would say finances was another, because I brought a lot of debt to our marriage. I was not made to work or learn how to save or anything growing up. My parents in a lot of ways, it was a blessing, but then it was not, because I didn't really learn how to take care of finances. So when we got married, he put a lot of financial parameters on me, and I was so mad. And we had a budget, and even as far as a few years ago, we still are budgeting for things, but it has made me grow so much in that area, and I feel so good about myself now that I can work. I work part-time because I have children at home, but that I can work and that I can save and I can buy. So I'm like grateful for that in that area where he has put boundaries on me, and because that was a real deficit for me.
That's really big. I really wanted to talk to you about something that you mentioned earlier about anger and turning your anger into gratitude, because I think that's like key, because so many of us get angry and frustrated when we see the men we love drinking or using drugs or, you know, on pornography after they've promised us, you know, and sworn up and down that the last time was really the last time, and we feel tricked and we feel manipulated. And so anger is a very real emotion when you are married and in love with somebody with this disease. How do you deal with your anger and turn that into gratitude?
Well, it's been a process for sure. I think my first big awareness of it came when I realized that I needed to stop talking about my anger to people. I had, actually my mom, who I would call every time I was angry and I would complain, and I guess because she's my mom, she just would let me complain. And I don't know, I might have done that for like a couple of years. I can't believe how long I did it, where I was just stuck in that anger and that complaining. And I finally realized, like, this isn't helping me. Like, I think, you know, she would say, oh, you're getting it out, you're venting. But after a few years, which I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wasted a few years doing that. But after a few years, I'm like, I'm not going forward. I just keep thinking and thinking about all of these things I'm angry about. So I had to seek out other people to talk to, and I think I had purchased your program, so I was listening to the teachings, but I didn't feel comfortable, I guess, talking to other people. That took me like probably a year of listening to your teachings until I began to feel safe. Like, in fact, I had used a fake name on the Facebook group because I just was so afraid to like talk to anyone besides like my parents or my sister, like immediate family members. So I began
posted about that. Didn't you post about that in the Facebook? I remember that. I remember being so proud of you. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so I was really afraid to like talk to someone else, and once I did, they like did not put up with that. I was like, I remember talking to people, and I could tell like they did not want to hear me complain all the time, or they didn't want, like, maybe I could complain to them once, but if I called them again, they were not answering. So after like getting to, I like saw or realized like, wow, I really have to change this. This is not good. And I just began listening to as many positive podcasts as I could, like all day. Every time I'm in the kitchen, which that became like, I used to be mad that I was in the kitchen all the time cooking or making meals. But now that's like with some of my favorite time of the day because I'll put on a podcast and listen while I'm cooking. And I guess I'm just trying to like rewire my brain and my thinking. And
what
so
are
that
some
has
of your
just
favorite podcasts? Because that's huge. I love that.
Okay.
I love rewiring your brain. What are some of them? What do you listen to? Because I love podcasts.
Okay.
I'm all over.
Sure. I listen to your podcast, of course. I love your gentle approach because sometimes I really feel like I need like gentle. So it sort of depends on the mood I'm in. Sometimes I feel like I need to be like kicked in the butt, inspired, and I listen to Spartan Up. Do you ever?
No. What is that? I'm writing it down. Spartan.
I actually did a Spartan race with my husband. They're like those crazy races like through the woods and mud, and you do like all these obstacle courses.
Really?
They're called Spartan races. I guess just Spartan.
Okay.
But the podcast is called Spartan Up, and they have like they interview like top athletes and top business people from all over the world, and they're usually like really like pumped up. I don't want to say aggressive, but just like go-getting kind of people. And so sometimes when I feel like I need to be like revved up, I'll listen to that. I listen to Recovered podcast, and that is like based on Alcoholics Anonymous. So that has given me a lot of like compassion or understanding for the alcoholic, because the people that talk on there are recovered alcoholics. So that has been really helpful to hear that side. And then I listen to the Recovery Show sometimes, and Tony Robbins. I like him.
I like him. Yeah. Have you seen his documentary? Are you
No, I
documentary
haven't.
person? Yeah, it's worth watching. It's on Netflix. It's free.
Oh, really? I accidentally just got turned on to him, so I haven't listened to that much, but I like his podcast.
Yeah, I really like him too. So that's great. I love that you are taking action and actually doing something when you're feeling down. Like you're not just sitting there. You're not just like, falling into this trap of complacency and depression, that you're actually finding real life tools, and in your case, podcasts, to really motivate you and uplift you, or give you, or soothe you, or comfort you, or whatever else you need. That's great. Do you have any other tools that you use, or things you do that help you?
Well, yes. I have a growing list of tools. I sometimes just put on music and sing, and I feel like if I start to get into my head and I'm like thinking about some kind of problem, if I start singing along with a song, that like gets me out of my head and out of those thoughts. So sometimes I like to just sing, because then like the kids can be involved and hear music, and I'm not just like zoned out on my own podcast. I try to do my art as much as possible. That is really helpful for me, or journaling or writing. Oftentimes just like getting out of the house and just changing the environment, just going somewhere and like doing something else is helpful. Going to like a park, or having like just like a short break with a friend where I'm not, just anything to like stop that train, where that train of thought is going, to divert it into something else, is what I try to do now. I do not want to waste like a whole day worried and obsessed about a problem. I still can get like tripped up maybe like an hour or so, but I'm much better at flipping it around and doing what I have to do. I think the other thing I do is I make a lot of to-do lists, and that really keeps me focused. I do have like a lot of goals, a lot of things I want to accomplish, so I'll sit down and write, these are the things I want to do today, and having that list kind of like brings me back, like, okay, I gotta, this is what has to be done. I have to stop. There's nothing I can do by worrying. It's not helping anything. So I think those are my top tools that I use. And the Facebook page. Sometimes when I'm at a low point, I like force myself to think of something that was a victory and put it on there, so that I'm trying to think of victories all the time.
Like, amen. Amen. I'm clapping to my head. I'm clapping for you. I'm so proud of you. That is so fabulous. Like, textbook what you should be doing. Like, I have no doubt, no matter what your future is, I know you're going to be just great, because that is exactly what you should be doing. And I think that's what, what makes you particularly strong is that you have this innate an ability to be a survivor. Like, you're a fighter. You're not a settler. You're not just going to sit there and, wait for somebody else to make you feel better or life circumstances to come and get better. Like, you're not waiting for your husband to get sober in order to have your own happiness. That's so strong and so courageous and such a wonderful example for your kids that, I mean, you are a leader. And I don't know if you consider yourself one, but that is leadership traits and leadership qualities. And that is very, very rare. Most women, most people in this life do not do what you're doing. So you should feel so proud of yourself. You should feel so excited. And this is, even if you just...
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm in awe, and I love what I'm hearing, and it makes me feel so good. And I'm just, I wish I could give you a big hug because I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
Do you find it difficult to accept? Like, is that something that you're still working on, where it's difficult to accept compliments or difficult to accept, like, the love that people are offering you? Or do you feel like you're at a place where you can really see the value that you bring? And do you feel how wonderfully made you are?
Well, I would say that is a very new place for me. Even as you were saying those things, a little voice in my head doubts. And before it was a very big voice. So this is only, I would say, the last few months where I really felt like I can accept, or I'm going to purposely accept those kinds of compliments and believe them. I've been posting on the Facebook page that a lot of affirmations, and those were things that I really turned to the last few months. I just had a baby, so I felt like I really needed to feel good about myself to have a beautiful birth. And I had a home birth, so I knew I wouldn't have medication. So I knew, and I know from experience, it can be really hard if you are filled with fear. So I did not want to be filled with fear. I wanted to feel really good about me, and I just kept telling myself a lot of those positive things. So, yes, I think I am at that place. I can hear it. It feels really good, and I'm believing it, but it is a new place for me.
Yeah, and I can't help but think, it's the place where God has wanted you all along. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, where it's like, this is how he brought you here. I mean, he brought you here because he wanted you to feel this way about yourself, because that's how he sees you and that's how other people see you. And I know every time I see your posts in Facebook, I hope this doesn't make you feel pressured, because you can share more than just victories, but I do love when you share, because I know that it just raises the group to another level. And so you are and you've been a leader in that small capacity, and I know that you'll continue to be used by him for wonderful, purposeful things. And I know you've got 3 kids, and 3, right? Do you have 3? Or is
Actually,
it 2?
I have 5.
Oh, I did not know
I
that.
just had my 5. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're in the same club. I didn't know that. I have 6.
Wait, what?
So I have 6. I have 6 kids.
Yeah, you have 6. I have 5. I had 4 boys, and then I just had a daughter.
Oh, that's right. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so great. I feel like you and I have very similar stories, where I feel like we went through the same things and we handled it the same way. I see, when you're talking, I see a lot of myself in you, where I reached for me, that when I was recovering, they didn't have podcasts, but I used, this is going to sound really silly, but I used the Golden Girls because it made me laugh. They made me laugh. So I watched episodes of the Golden Girls, and I read books, and I watched uplifting movies of powerful women like Erin Brockovich and stuff. because
Oh, yeah.
I was unwilling to settle. I did not want to spend the rest of my life feeling this way, and I couldn't do it for my kids either. I didn't. So when I made this program, I'm like, everything I've gone to, everything that I've attended has just been so depressing, and I leave the meetings feeling worse than when I started. And I just wanted something where I was like, there's got to be a great way where we can talk about this, but not necessarily, like, we can come out knowing that there's lots of things we can do to help ourselves and help others. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. You just made my day.
Thank you for interviewing me. It makes it feel like I've come from somewhere, made progress. So
you have made boatloads of progress. You just keep telling yourself that, and I hope that you do something today to really celebrate that. I really do. I hope you take a big chunk of time out to really celebrate how far you've come, because it's amazing, and you've come so far so fast. I mean, like, I normally expect this kind of progress from somebody who's joined for, years, but you've come very far, very fast. So, congratulations, and
Thanks.
I will talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
All right, take care.
I'll see you on Facebook.
Okay,
Bye.
that sounds good. Okay, bye.
If you're feeling ready to join the Love Over Addiction program in the secret community along with this woman and Michelle, you can learn more at loveoveraddiction.com/LOA. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and we just want you to know that you all are the reason that we do what we do. We recently hit a huge milestone with our podcast by reaching 1 million downloads, and we want to say a huge thank you to everyone listening, because we couldn't have done it without you. And, when we were thinking about this, we also realized that celebrating can be super tricky when alcohol and addiction are in our lives. So we created a free, fun sheet with 17 ways to celebrate without alcohol or drugs. And we'd love for you to join us in celebrating. Get your free copy by going to loveoveraddiction.com/million. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with Michelle's personal thoughts and beliefs. From one woman to another, bonded together by the fact we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.